in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. Coming up tonight, Rishi Sunak has said that he wishes more Brits would give up the security of a regular paycheck and be more comfortable with failing. This is all about getting people more involved in trying to set up businesses. He wants us to be more like Silicon Valley. His critics there say he's massively out of touch, is he? And Elon Musk says that soon, thanks to AI, we humans won't need to work. Would you still work if you did not need to? And Sir Keir Starmer has been up north. He didn't even get a nosebleed. He says, though, that basically he is the man to fix the north. Is he? And what would that take? Do we even need fixing and saving? You tell me. And the guy that stalked and murdered Zina Alina has basically today been successful in having his minimum jail term reduced. Let me ask you this though, right? When you get a life sentence, why is there such a thing even as a minimum term? Surely life should mean life, should it not? And according to a poll, lots of us now think that the culture war is a made-up thing in order for political gain. Are you one of those people that thinks that? And if so, why? Get in touch and tell me. Yes, indeed, that is all to come within the next hour. Lots of debate, and I'm, for one, I'm very much looking forward to it. But before we get stuck into all that, let's cross live for tonight's latest headlines.
Good evening. Your top stories from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says plans by some groups to protest during remembrance commemorations are provocative and disrespectful. In a statement, Rishi Sunak said the right to remember in peace and dignity must be protected. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer echoed the comments, saying he supports the police in whatever action is needed. It comes after reports of plans by demonstrators to march during remembrance events, calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. Foreign Secretary James Cleverly says the focus should remain on remembrance.
Our traditional British culture is to ask of people that they conduct themselves appropriately and that they make personal decisions that reflect the broader needs of society. Of course, if we need to take action, we are not afraid to do so. But what we have said is people should reflect on what Armistice Day and Remembrance Sunday is about and to respect that.
The Israeli military has confirmed 260 IDF troops have been wounded in the fighting in Gaza. People in the north of the enclave have been facing intense bombardment. The Israeli Prime Minister says there'll be no pause in fighting until more than 240 hostages are freed by Hamas. It comes as the US Secretary of State's been meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu to discuss steps to minimise civilian casualties. Anthony Blinken said a humanitarian pause was important to help get aid into the Strip. Scotland's First Minister Humza Yousaf says his family has been able to leave Gaza through the Rafah crossing. They're among 92 British nationals trapped in the enclave that are approved to travel through into Egypt today as the border opens again for limited evacuations. Palestinian officials say more than 700 foreign nationals have crossed in the past 2 days, including dozens of critically injured people. Meanwhile, the media have reportedly come under a Hamas rocket attack on the Gaza border. It appears the rocket impacted an empty nursery next to the bomb shelter, which members of the media were running to. There were no serious injuries as we know it, but vehicles were damaged and the rocket could be seen in the playground of the nursery. Our security editor, Mark White, is at the Gaza border.
We were running into the bomb shelter, which is just here, really. And the rocket has impacted just as we were getting into the nursery itself. You can see, hopefully, through there the small crater in the ground there as the personnel from the local sort of policing unit deals with that. So the question now, I guess, is really, was this a deliberate targeting of the media? Because the media have been at this location for some time, obviously reporting live on what has happened. So clearly the concern is perhaps the media have been deliberately targeted. So some real concern here in Sderot at what has just happened, a rocket attack coming from northern Gaza in here. We just really had seconds to try to get.
2 women have been charged under the Terrorism Act after images of paragliders were displayed at a pro-Palestinian march in central London. 29-year-old Hiba Al-Hay and 26-year-old Pauline Ankunda are accused of carrying or displaying an article to arouse suspicion they're supporters of the terrorist group Hamas. The incident occurred last month. They've both been bailed and they'll appear at Westminster's Magistrates' Court on the 10th of November. Conservative MP Bob Stewart's been found guilty of a racially aggravated public order offence. The Beckenham MP racially abused a man after he allegedly told him to go back to Bahrain outside the Foreign Office last December. He also told him, "You're taking money off my country," and to go away. The Chief Magistrate said Stewart will not be jailed. And Zara Alina's family have described the reduction of her killer's sentence as a shallow triumph, which sends a disheartening message to women. Jordan McSweeney killed the 35-year-old law graduate as she walked home from a night out in East London last June. McSweeney, who refused to attend his sentencing hearing last December, was handed a 38-year life sentence. The Court of Appeal ruled that was too high and reduced it to 33 years. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's back to Michelle.
Hello there, I am Michelle Dewberry till 7 o'clock. Alongside me, my Friday favourites. Can't shake them off, I do. I think it's the free beer that keeps drawing them back. It's the Conservative life peer in the House of Lords, Daniel Moylan, and the writer and trade unionist, Paul Embry. We didn't issue the signed picture review last time. Do you remember we did the sweepstake?
We did, yeah. We'll have to put that right.
I don't know how
worth
keen
a lot of money one day.
I don't know how keen people were on the actual photograph. I don't know why I'm saying absolutely not. I don't know. It's not me. I'm saying absolutely nothing. But we didn't issue it. There was not much call.
Yes, they were queuing out the block when I left the studio, I have to say.
Because they thought you were Harry, probably.
Yeah,
they probably thought you were Harry. You know the drill, don't you? You can get in touch with me all the usual ways. gbviews@gbnews.com is how you reach me, or you can tweet me at gbnews. Lots coming your way. That Zara Alina, we've just been talking about that in the headlines there. What do you make to that, him having his tariff reduced? I've got to remind you, the guy couldn't even be bothered to go and attend his sentencing. He also stormed out of an appeal hearing previously. A bit of a wrong, and if you ask me. And if you get sentenced to life, shouldn't life just mean life? Why are we messing around with minimum tariffs in the first place? I'll be coming on to that in a little while. But first, I want to talk to you about Rishi Sunak. When is he not in trouble, quite frankly? Let's listen to what he had to say that's upset people today.
How do you transpose that culture from places like Silicon Valley across the world, where people are unafraid to give up the security of a regular paycheck to go and start something and be comfortable with failure?
Yeah, I mean, literally, he really has upset a lot of people. I'll show you Jonathan Ashworth's response to that in a second. But basically, people are saying that Rishi's massively out of touch and that this is quite offensive, suggesting that in a cost of living crisis, people should give up their paycheck and all the rest of it. Do you think that's fair criticism?
I think it's complete nonsense. There are always people who are going to go out and want to work for themselves. It doesn't suit everybody. Going to work for themselves. And the idea, this idea, what I disagree with him about is this idea of a secure paycheck. You know, when I started up in self-employment 30 years ago, and I thought I'm giving up a secure paycheck. And of course, what do I have? I actually have the right to a month's notice. That's all a secure paycheck actually is. Whereas once you start up in business and you start getting a pipeline of work coming at you, after a bit, I could see I can live for the next 6 or 8 months on this. I don't have to worry. I don't know any plumbers, self-employed plumbers, who are worried they're going to run out of work in a month's time. But so this idea that, you're giving up a secure paycheck, you're giving up a month's notice period to have a chance to do something that might be more rewarding for you, and you should be encouraged to do it. What's wrong with that?
Let's look at what Jonathan Ashworth had to say, if I can bring it up on Twitter, or X, as we now call it. I think, have we got that? I shall bring it up. Yep, there you go. He's asking, how out of touch is Rishi Sunak? After 13 years of the Tories, the public are enduring the worst cost of living crisis in memory, and he is spending his time telling Elon Musk that he wishes they would all give up their jobs and be ready to fail. He hasn't got a clue. See, I read that and I just think, pack it in, misrepresenting things. He doesn't want everyone to fail. What he was talking about is there is a culture in America, like I won't do an American accent, the American dream, where people are very confident, think that I'll take that chance, I'll do that business. And when or if they fail, People in America don't laugh at failure. They don't go, oh, what a loser. They get inspired by failure because they go, at least he tried, at least he had a go. Now let me have a crack, let me try and do it, and actually keep going until you do succeed.
But I think the problem was he talked about it in such a way, the tone was like, it's just so easy. It's an easy thing to do. Look, give up the security of your monthly paycheck and go and start a business. And you know what, if it fails, who cares? Just sort of pick up where you left off. Well, yeah, it goes some way with what Daniel says, but I think it is slightly tone deaf, because when you are somebody who is worth, what's he worth, 732 million or something like that, slightly less than Daniel, I know. When you're worth that kind of amount of money, then of course it is easy to say, oh look, let's try that. No, let's try this, because you know, if I fail, I'm not going to struggle to pay my mortgage. I'm not going to struggle to put food on the table for my kids. And to kind of be that tone deaf during a cost of living crisis, where people really are struggling to make ends meet, where real wages are falling, where we're in the tightest wage squeeze in this country since Napoleonic times, I think there is an element of tone deafness about it. And I would like to see, look, you're always going to need employees. Let's be clear about that. We can't all be self-employed small businessmen or businesswomen. You're always going to need people working on production lines, people working in accounts departments, people working for the emergency services and the public sector, and that kind of thing. And we should perhaps focus on that a little bit more and talk about getting their wages up and talking about improving their conditions and their value to society.
See, tone deaf, I don't really buy this tone deaf stuff, because I just think that's people that want to be offended. You can't say anything these days. Oh, you can't say that because there's people over there that are struggling. You can't do this, you can't do that. Is it tone deaf? Am I wrong?
I've completely, totally failed to understand what this argument is about. And I will disagree also with the Prime Minister and you a little bit on this. This is not just an American thing. There are people in this country who are entrepreneurial as well. It's not something we have to copy from them. We have a great tradition of people working for themselves, setting up their own businesses here as well. And they do take some risks. And of course, it isn't for everyone, and it does depend partly on your stage in life. If you're married with 3 children and you have a mortgage, it may not be the best bet. If you're a bit younger and you've got, you know, different chances, this is different exposures and risks, this might be the time to do it. We should be encouraging it. That's all he was saying. How do we encourage it more? And I'll give him an answer as well how you can encourage it more. You could stop HM Revenue and Customs cracking down on self-employed people as if they were criminals, which is what they tend to do. And you should give people more encouragement through the tax system.
But come on, Daniel, Rishi Sunak, see, it's undeniable.
That's nothing to do with Rishi Sunak, who is not worth 700 billion.
Chill out.
He's not worth 700 billion. You know that's his wife's money. You want to mix that all together.
He's worth an awful lot.
I don't know how much he's worth, but no way working in a bank did he earn 700 million.
Well, if it's his wife's money, I mean, if it doesn't matter. If you're married, it's your wealth as well. That's how marriage tends to work. But look, he sees the world through the lens of a rich capitalist. Now, I'm not necessarily kind of decrying him for that, but that's true. You know, he sees the world through people who are through the lens of people who are worth a lot of money, who are business owners, who are owners of capital. I would like to see Rishi Sunak talk a little bit more, and I don't think he does it anywhere near enough, about people who are genuinely struggling, working class people, people who are in transient, precarious employment, people on 0 hours contracts.
Yeah, and the moment he does that, you say, how can he have any empathy with them because he's a rich bastard who earns 700 million?
Language, everyone, tea time. Let me ask you.
You're just making sure he can't win. It's complete made up. You just make this stuff up. You have no idea how he sees the world.
It's not.
You're not inside his head.
Hold on a second. Well, if that were the case, then we would never ever cast a view on any politician. I mean, I'm sure you've
cast a view on what they say and what they do, not what you invent. No,
don't talk over each other, you two, because people at home won't be able to hear you. Let me ask you this. Would you be happier if the Prime Minister was, I don't know, like a minimum wage, struggling single dad, so that then you feel that he can now represent those people? Because it seems to me a little bit like a lot of people almost envy Rishi Sunak's success, feel that he can't have his role because how can he relate to the common man if he's so wealthy? Whereas actually, I think it's pretty damn good that someone that is successful, that has trodden that path, has high office?
I mean, look, I'm not attacking him as an individual, as a person, of course. But equally, I think if you earn wealth, you earn an income which is in a different stratosphere to the average person on the street, then by definition, it's difficult to have empathy with the daily stresses and strains and struggles that the average person is going through. And I think the second thing, actually, is that, you know, grotesque inequalities in wealth and income, which is what we've got in this country at the moment, are not only morally repugnant, but actually they're not good in terms of economic performance. All of the international data shows that widening inequalities are accompanied by reduced economic performance. I don't like to see vast disparities in wealth between the Rishi Sunaks, who are worth multi-millions, and the ordinary average person. I don't think that's healthy for
Well, let me
society.
ask you, the ordinary average person that's watching this, does it bother you how much money the Prime Minister is worth? Do you feel he can't steward this country properly because he can't connect to some of you guys, some of us guys? Get in touch and tell me. But also, I'll tell you, Elon Musk was speaking out as well last night. I'll play you what he had to say.
There will come a point where no job is needed. You can have a job if you want to have a job for sort of personal satisfaction, but the AI will be able to do everything.
Would you, if you didn't need to work, would you still, do you think, go out and work?
I think I would, but I don't think this situation is ever going to arise.
Don't you?
No, I just don't believe this is the way it's going to work. There is, you know, people work at things in order to generate value. What constitutes value changes from time to time. If you can have value in manufactured goods produced by robots, then you'll move on to have value in something else, and people want things. There are services, you know, things you get now that you wouldn't have had 20, 30 years ago, and people generate business value out of them because people are willing to pay for them, and they've got the income to do so. So I think it moves on, and people create value in different spheres of life. And by doing things for other people, it'd be much more services-oriented. But I still think there'd be lots of jobs to do.
Do you think AI is going to take over all the jobs? And if so, would you work if you didn't financially have to?
I would work. I think work is a good thing. I think it gives you self-discipline, self-respect, self-esteem, gives you the feeling you're contributing to society, gives you self-worth. You forge lifelong friendships in the workplace. So I like to think I would probably do that anyway. I mean, Elon Musk, I think, is wrong to say that there will be no jobs. I think what can happen with artificial intelligence is, in fact, like technology often does, new technology coming on stream, it can spark new industries often and spark new jobs. The idea that we're all going to have loads of leisure time, I think, is fanciful. In fact, you go back to the Industrial Revolution, people said the same thing. Oh, we've got all this wonderful machinery now that can take the place of human labour. We'll all have this extra leisure time. People said it more recently with the advent of the internet and email and things like that. And if anything, actually, people are working harder because with technology now, with the email, your boss has got you on the beach in Italy for your holiday. So I don't think there's any evidence that the advance of technology in the sort of society that we live in gives us more leisure time. In fact, often the opposite is true.
Lots of ladies getting in touch, telling me that they have their own businesses. I like that. Tracy in Somerset, she says, I've just started a new business, but I have to confess, I am single. She says she couldn't have done it. She doesn't feel if she had a family. She said she perhaps couldn't have taken that risk. Sue says, 12 years ago, I left my job to set up my own business. It was challenging. That's not the way she words it, but I'll word it differently for telly. It was challenging for a while, she says, but I've never looked back. That's Sue in Lancashire. I like that. One of the things that I often wonder, we ask about get up and go. Do you think, and I'll leave it to you guys to ponder at home, do you think that you can teach somebody, like, get up and go? I'll ask you, actually, do you think you can? Is it something that's just in you, or is it something that can be taught?
Oh, I think absolutely it can be. Well, some people don't want to get up and go, and that's fair. Some people want the regular job where they turn up and they're happy to do it, and they get paid, and they're satisfied with the routine. And that's absolutely fine for the people who want that. But I certainly think the people who do want to give it a go are people very often who can be helped, encouraged, mentored, and there are lots of things you can do to get them on that path.
Yeah, I'll throw it open to you. What do you think? I've always thought maybe you've got to have a why. If you've got a why, a purpose, something that drives you, something that when times are really hard, you've got a why. Well, I've got to keep going for that. I've got to keep going for that. But do you reckon you can get up and go from a book, from a course, from a mentor? Get in touch. Let me know your thoughts on that. Also, Keir Starmer, he has been talking the big talk when it comes to how he is going to sort out the North. Is he the man for the job? And what does sorting out the North look like to you?
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry, keeping you company till 7 o'clock. The Conservative Life Peer in the House of Lords, Daniel Moylan, and writer and trade unionist Paul Embry alongside me. Wayne says, Michelle, it is pointless emailing your show. You just cherry pick the best or most suited emails, and then you go on with an interesting insight that you want me to read out. But I do need to be clear. We do respectful debate on this programme, so I would love to get as many emails in and I really do try and get as much as I can in, time permitting. But I can't read anything with bad language or anything rude or anything like that. That's just not my style, I'm afraid. So keep it clean. You never know. I might actually read it out in its entirety, Wayne. Rod says, I'm 77 and I'm still working. I still enjoy the thrill, he says. I'm not treated like an old codger when I get to work and life is good. I'm fascinated fascinated. What work do you do that gives you said thrill rod? I need to know details. Get back in touch and give me that details, please. Paul says, can we start with the trains when we're talking about AI? Can you imagine if robots ran the trains? There'd be no strikes, all your trains would be on time, etc. I've got to say, that does indeed sound good. Claire says, yes, there is a cost of living, but the more we tell people that you can't give up a job and take a risk, the more that they probably won't want to do that. She says, I gave up my job 15 years ago and I haven't looked back. I've got to say, there's a lot of ladies getting in touch with me tonight telling me that you are self-employed businesswomen. I like that. I really do. I find that interesting as well, because a lot of women, we're always told, oh, you're going to be oppressed in the workplace, you're not going to be paid the same as guys. I think you keep feeding all these young girls that narrative all the time. Why are they going to try and strive and thrive? So I do like it when I hear of women saying... I was going to swear then, I can't swear it.
It's catching.
Yeah, it's catching. I'm catching off him. But saying, like, you know, stuff you, I am going to.
But at the same time, Michelle, there's also millions of women who are working all the hours God sends in call centres, and warehouses and things like that, and are paying a fortune to put their kids into childcare, so end up not taking very much home. But because of the way our economy is run these days, and because families can't survive on the wage of a single wage earner, a lot of them are forced into the workplace. I feel people should have that choice, and a lot of them don't have that choice, sadly.
Indeed. We'll keep your thoughts on that one coming in. Keir Starmer, he gave a speech today, a lot of it focusing on the North. Let's have a listen to a little bit.
A choice between a Conservative Party with no plan for the future, hurtling down the only high-speed project it's ever managed to build, the highway to British decline, or the Labour alternative, a party that understands the potential that lies in regions like this, that has a plan to grow every corner of this country, will work with you to get the North East building again, get our future back with a decade of national renewal.
Fascinating stuff. None of it washes with me, though, because I honestly think if anyone actually cared about levelling up, cared about the North or whatever, you never would have had this situation where there was such a disparity between the two, because that has not just happened overnight. That has been decades in the making, I can tell you. What do you make to it, then? Keir Starmer, is he the man to sort out the North?
Well, it sounds good, and you give him credit for the fact that he's focusing on it, and he should. But the big thing missing in it is where he said he had a plan. Labour had a plan for doing this. There is no plan for doing this. There's just the speech and a few slogans, and there's no money to put behind it, and there's nothing you can say what he's actually going to do. And so, if this was easy, this government would have done it. Another government would have done it. This is going to be really, really difficult. Partly, as you say, because there's an inherited history to it. Partly because nobody really knows how to get this sort of thing going. And it will almost certainly cost a lot of money, and a lot of money will be wasted because it'll end up supporting, businesses that aren't sustainable, that go bankrupt further down the road. Because that's what usually happens when governments back businesses too much, excessively. So we really need to know if he's got a plan. Until he's got a plan, I don't really believe this cuts anything at all.
Do you?
No, I don't think any of the parties really understand the levelling up agenda. I think that the Tories kind of think that all we need to do is move one of the departments from Whitehall to Darlington or something like that, and that's what levelling up is. I don't think either of the main parties really know how to go about levelling up. I think the speech today was OK, but I agree with Daniel, it wasn't underpinned by any sort of real plan. A plan that, for example, understands that most of the wealth in this country is kind of sucked in by London and the South East, and the rest of the country is in many respects neglected. And I agree with you that that actually is a process that hasn't just happened recently. I think if you look at the decimation of our industrial base, deindustrialisation, and the collapse of our manufacturing economy, and the way in which we now elevate financial services over the real economy where people work and where wealth is created, I think that has been hugely destructive for our country. And considering that, places like the North and the Midlands were hotbeds of industry and relied on, the manufacturing sector and the industrial base, during that process of deindustrialisation, when all of these jobs have kind of gone abroad or just disappeared altogether, these places have been kind of searching around for a purpose, really. You go to some of these places and there's some of the old pit communities, and you'll know in the north, you know, some of them are still industrial wastelands to this day, and we've paid a huge price for that.
I find this interesting because Thatcher often gets a lot of blame.
And rightly so.
Yeah, but you say rightly so.
No,
because
it's rightly so.
Yeah, but I was looking today. So, for example, Wilson closed way more mines, pits, than what Thatcher did. Almost double there or thereabouts.
But it's not just about the pits, though, Michelle. It's
no,
about,
but that's a key thing, though, isn't it?
But it's about the whole approach to industry, the whole approach to the real economy. You look at the Big Bang, for example, in the city, massive deregulation in the city helped to pull more wealth into the city of London, and again further neglect the industrial heartland.
Do you think the Tories get too much of the blame for this north-south divide?
Oh, I think Tories get too much of the blame for everything because it suits everyone to beat them up, and it's easy shots. But I don't think that's really the question. I think first of all, Paul needs to remember when you look at how much money the government spends in a particular part of the country, you also need to look at how much tax those parts of the country contribute as well. You need to look both sides of it. It's not true that London sucks in most of the money in the country. What is actually true is that London, through its the taxes it pays for most of the investment in the rest of the country. And so the fact that it might get a bit more in, but it's paying a lot more out than it's coming in. The second thing is, the city, the City of London. We haven't been promoting the City of London. We've been clamping down on the City of London since 2008. And we haven't been promoting the financial sector. Maybe we were when he's talking back in Thatcher in the 80s and the 90s. But we absolutely do not. We are to some extent reliant on financial services. We are, to some extent, reliant on financial services because we're good at them. We're also reliant on the services that are allied to them. We're good at legal services. We're good at accountancy services and things like that. Should we be closing those things down because you're somehow over-reliant on them? So we have an economy which is shaped in a certain way. In Germany, they have an economy shaped more around manufacturing, although that's a real trouble to them. That's turning out to be a real risk and exposure now when the cheap energy is running out. We've got it shaped in a different way. No two countries are the same. So we should be celebrating what we do and actually making it work. And all we get is, what happened back in the 1980s and what the pit villages were like.
Yeah, but
what's this discussion about?
Hold on a second. I mean, if we're talking about the reasons why we're in the position that we're in industrially, economically, then you can't ignore historical factors like that. You can't ignore the fact that the attack on the mining industry was a huge part of the programme of deindustrialisation.
The mining industry wound itself up through crazed strikes carried out by Scargill on a revolutionary basis.
That's a caricature.
Absolutely true.
That's a caricature. What Thatcher did is threw thousands and thousands of men, because they were all men at the time, onto the scrap heap. You had villages and communities that were built around the pit. It was their main source of employment, their main source of industry. And the social decay that set in some of those communities. By the way, it was fundamentally unconservative.
The villages built around the pit. If
you look at the importance of family and order within society and relationships and people's well-being and the sense of community, what Thatcher did actually was very unconservative.
If you could reverse that, you would not. Nobody would say we should open up pits. Nobody would say that people should go down working in the bottom of pits.
I'm not sure, given the lack of energy security.
And nobody in the Green lobby would allow you to do it. So you're talking about a dream, it's history, and it's totally irrelevant. We are not going back to a pit-based economy.
I'm talking about historically whether it was a wise thing.
Why don't we talk about what might happen?
Well, there you go. Look, I'll tell you historically. I'll give you some figures. Wilson closed 235 pits, apparently, versus Thatcher, who closed 115. We talk about levelling up. I always wonder, what do we mean? What is it we want to level up? Be careful what you wish for. I still have not got over the fact that on Wednesday, I paid almost £18 for a glass of wine in London. And it wasn't even a large glass of wine. It was a 175. So I always think when I go up north, everything is a lot cheaper, including, not least as well, house prices. So sometimes we have got to be a bit careful what we wish for. Now, I want to talk to you about life sentences. Should they even have a minimum tariff allowed? The killer of Zara Alina has today had his minimum sentence reduced. What's going on? I'll see you
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's on your teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Dewbs and Keir, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the dinosaur hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Oh! No, thank you. My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock tonight. The Tory live peer in the House of Lords, Daniel Moylan, alongside me, as is the writer and trade unionist Paul Embry-Gloria, says, Michelle, we love you to bits, but you've just mentioned £18 for a glass of wine. You should be absolutely ashamed of yourself. How many families would love that money to put food on the table? It's not me that was making up that mythical figure of the price of wine. I went to go and see Jordan Peterson, as I was telling you all, and that was the cost that they put on the wine. I wasn't actually paying for that wine. And my point is how outrageous I still not got over it all these days on. It is.
You shouldn't have bought it. You shouldn't have bought it. You should have gone. You should have taken the tap. You should have taken the tap water. You should have taken the tap water and left the £18.
I know, but I'm a mum. I don't get to go out. I don't get to go out much these days. So when I do go out, I like to get involved.
Get stuck in.
I do actually. So even though it wasn't me paying for that wine, I've still not got over the cost because I think it is gross profiteering. And when you go to an entertainment venue, as you say,
it's the free market, Michelle. It's capitalism. It's the system you support. You don't start complaining about it.
I think
these hard-working strivers and go-getters starting up their business,
exactly what it isn't.
Business.
It's exactly
if you don't
what
want
it
to pay,
isn't.
then
A free market.
Well,
once you're inside the O2, you need to recognise what a market looks like. Once you're inside the O2, there is no market in drinks.
Well, someone's just got in touch with me.
You don't have to go to the O2.
It's a monopoly.
You go to the local pub.
Someone's just got in touch with me and said that he's paid £19 for a glass of Prosecco at Stansted Airport. Really? £19 for a glass
You
of
could have had a glass of proper champagne for that.
You could have had about 2 bottles of...
Duty-free at airports, didn't it? Used to get it cheaper.
Well, yeah, there you go. Anyway, you guys, I'm massively off topic. I'm not supposed to be talking about alcohol. I've got a very serious topic to discuss with you, actually. You'll be familiar by now with the story, the awful story of the murder of Zara Alina. Well, her killer has now won a Court of Appeal challenge to have his sentence reduced. The killer, Jordan McSweeney, he had basically life with a minimum tariff of 38 years. He's now got life with a minimum tariff of 33 years, so a 5-year reduction in that minimum tariff. I've never quite grasped why. If someone gets life, why is there even such a thing as a minimum tariff in the first place? Because her
to stop them being let out early. That's the point. It's a minimum tariff. And unlike other sentences where you serve for ordinary crimes, you'd normally serve half the sentence and leave. That doesn't work if you do murder. You do the minimum tariff, and there is no parole in normal circumstances. There's no parole prior to that. And, of course, it's up to... You could be let out early for various administrative or political reasons. Any prisoner can be let out early by the Home Secretary, or sometimes, but that's a right that exists. But the minimum tariff protects them from the public from having them being let out too early. Now, I'm not going to talk about an individual case. I'm going to make a point here. The people who look at these and make these decisions in the Court of Appeal are really very experienced judges, and they have looked at this case in much more detail than I or any other member of the public probably ever will. And they've reached a decision based on a lot of experience and also by trying to do justice. Because this isn't just about what do the public want, this is about trying to do justice. And that means something about fairness in sentencing so that you get roughly the same sentence for the same crime. I know no crime of this nature is necessarily ever the same. And I will trust them to do their job. And I don't think I would never comment on an individual case like this. General principles, maybe, but not an individual case.
I'll comment on this individual case.
I know you will.
Oh, I definitely will. This guy is an absolute wrong-un. He committed this murder. He stalked this girl. I think it was after 9 days after coming out of prison, and he was on licence. He apparently stalked about another 5 girls in advance of this. He couldn't even be bothered to attend his own sentencing hearing. He stormed out of a previous appeal hearing. To me, it infuriates me, and I get Daniel's point, but if you have done this, if you've murdered someone, if you've been stamping on their head when this girl is just about to try and go home, when you've attempted to rape them and all the rest of it, have your life sentence. This minimum tariff for me is completely wrong.
I'm with you on this one. I think court sentencing, frankly, is a con. I think when the public hear on a news report so-and-so has been sentenced to life imprisonment, I think the public are entitled to conclude that that person will spend the rest of his life in prison. But we know that that's not the case. And I think that, you know, what invariably happens is whatever the sentence is, someone only serves half of the sentence. You know, they get parole for good behaviour and so on. I think we look at it wrongly. I think that rather than giving parole for good behaviour in prison, I think good behaviour should be the expectation in prison. And if you don't meet that standard, then actually your sentence should be extended for bad behaviour rather than shortening it.
Without a trial? You would give people an additional prison sentence without a trial or a conviction?
No, I'm not saying
Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying there shouldn't be a trial.
There should be a trial. Okay, they should go. So they'll have committed a crime in prison. They'll have committed a crime in prison, and if they do commit a crime in prison, that's what happens already. They would get a trial. So what are you suggesting that's different?
Well, let's say, for example, someone who doesn't attend their sentencing, the government are proposing to have the power to extend their sentence by up to 2 years. OK? Now, I'm saying that
as not bad behaviour in prison.
Hold on. I'm saying that as a principle, the same kind of principle could be established for people who behave badly in prison.
It could, but would you do it?
You were sentenced to this initially.
Yeah, but would you do it without a trial?
Can be.
You want a system where you can keep people in jail without a criminal process or a trial or a chance to defend themselves?
Of course, there should be a system of due process.
Oh yeah,
whatever
due
form
process, but not a trial.
Hold on, Daniel. Whatever form due process might take, the person should be entitled to a hearing, the person should be entitled to a defence. So are you saying then that on that principle, that someone who refuses to attend their sentencing, the government is proposing they can have their sentences extended by up to 2 years? You're saying that even that is wrong. But according to the logic of your argument, they should
I think
do that.
That is part of the original sentence. That is something judges take. Judges take The number of... I'm going to finish now, Paul.
Judges they weren't on trial for refusing to attend their
but judges take various things...
Don't talk over
Judges
each other.
take various things into account in deciding their sentencing, which has not happened at the point at which we're discussing, OK? And that might be a factor they take into account. It seems to me a wholly different matter to say, you haven't behaved properly in jail, so we're going to add something onto your sentence, unless you're actually saying they've committed a crime, we're going to prosecute them for it and give them a sentence, because otherwise you just end up with administrative detention with no limit
But
to
isn't it like...
It's not a free country.
I'm not suggesting that. Of course I'm not suggesting
Well, there you go. Isn't it Charles Bronson, by the way? And he just had so many different sentences added on to his original prison sentence, or whatever he calls himself these days. I'm sure you guys will correct me.
Mind you, he was a terrible actor.
Yeah, if I'm wrong on that one. Let me know your thoughts on all of that. I feel so sorry for her family, by the way, having to go through this now as well. Let me ask you this. Do you think the culture war exists? Is it manufactured, basically, for political gain? I'm interested to hear what you think about that one next.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows...
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock. Lord Moylan and Paul Emery alongside me. Bob says, I love your show. The chemistry between the three of you is very Moorish.
There you go.
That's nice.
With the alcohol flowing.
He also goes on there to say, Michelle, why do you keep saying, though, what do you make to that? Everyone else says, what do you make of that?
Yeah, he's got a point.
Has he?
Yeah, he's got a point. Sorry to be a pedant, but yeah, I'm with him.
Bob. This is Dewberry Tavern. It's not Dewberry Grammar Lesson. Cheers to that.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers to all of you.
Cheers.
And cheers to your weekend. No, by the way, I didn't pay £18 for that glass of Prosecco before I get the next email. Look, I want to ask you about culture wars. We have this phrase all the time, don't we? But now there's been a poll done which basically suggests that 2/3 of us apparently don't think that the culture wars is actually a thing. They think it's been exaggerated and made up and all the rest of it for political gain. Cynical. Do you agree with that?
I don't, actually. I think there really is a split in the country between people who want to push what they call a progressive agenda and what the majority of voters tend to want. It was very well illustrated over the Brexit issue, but it's remarkably easy, I see this in the House of Lords, to get legislation through which follows a particular sort of agenda, remarkably difficult even to make a case as to why we shouldn't be going in that direction. And these people very often are university educated, they're linked in certain ways and so on, and they congratulate each other all the time on what they think. Now, there's a separate question, if I can be very quick, about how this affects voting intentions. Because it's still the case that you can be worried about these culture war issues and things like that, but when it comes to putting your vote in your X in a box, you're judging the government rather than society as a whole. And so things the government are directly responsible for. Look at this quarrel about the Marks and Spencer's ad. People are not going to vote Conservative or Labour or whatever on a Marks and Spencer's ad because they know government doesn't run Marks and Spencer's. It doesn't mean they're not concerned about the issues that arise out of it. So I think we could be a little bit more subtle when we look at opinion polling on voting intentions. If it says people are more worried about immigration and about the cost of living crisis and whatever, that's understandable. Doesn't mean they're not worried about or concerned about other things.
Do you agree with any of that, Paul?
Yeah, I agree with all of it. I think the people who tend to complain most about the culture war, as far as I can see, are the people who actually started it and are now complaining that this particular war exists. And often these are people who have done their best. They follow a very, as Daniel said, a very sort of radical progressive agenda. And I think that they are often in positions of influence, whether it's within the media, whether it's in the public sector, corporations and whatever. And they have spent a long time going around ripping up, I think, many of our, what you might call our age-old social and cultural norms. They're people who will often depict this country as racist and bigoted and intolerant, and they've got no time for old-fashioned institutions like the family, and they tell us that men can be women and vice versa, and they're obsessed with critical race theory and that kind of thing. And then when the average Joe says, hold on a second, I think that's a bit far out, I don't agree with that, they point at him and go, oh, will you stop it with your culture war? Actually, the vast majority of people in this country are not engaged in a culture war. They just don't like the people who are prosecuting it. So we need to understand who's actually responsible for starting.
Can I just add to that, because we're in danger of agreeing too much, but just very, very quickly, what the people that Paul and I would agree belong to this sort of cultural elite. The tactic they're using at the moment, and this opinion poll seems part of it, is to say there is no culture war and there is no elite. They're not arguing back. They're not saying we're right and you're wrong. Our agenda is the right agenda, yours is old-fashioned stuck in the mud. They're saying there's nothing to see here, it's not happening. And I think that's very telling because they're not willing to step up and defend their positions with the rest of the country.
And it's about seeking, they are what you might call high-status opinions. Often I get the sense that some of these people don't necessarily passionately believe in some of these causes that they're espousing, but they know that they're high-status opinions. They know that by voicing them, they will ingratiate themselves with the kind of the metropolitan elite, the North London dinner party set, and they seek that embrace. They seek the liberal embrace. They seek the metropolitan embrace. And you will often see people like William Hague, for example, who took years ago quite a robust line on immigration, and now he's very much in favour of a liberal immigration policy, and he thinks the Women's Institute should admit trans women and stuff like that. You will see politicians ditch their traditional views and values because they want to seek the metropolitan embrace. They want the approval of their peers, whilst the vast majority of people out there feel just completely detached from this ideology, from this worldview.
I was really interested as well about your response. I saw it on Twitter, that Marks and Spencer's ad. I think you raised a really good point. We spoke about this Marks and Spencer's ad in detail last night, didn't we? Where it was kind of like the burning of the hats, the smacking of the elf and the sticking of the Monopoly or whatever it was in the fish tank. Paul raised a really good point. He said, close your eyes for a second and imagine a brand making an advert, say, for Eid or something like that, and smashing up or, you know, dismissing and all the rest of it, disrespecting the trinkets or whatever it is, the traditions that would be associated with that festival. Wouldn't happen, wouldn't it, everyone? Lots of you getting in touch, talking about Jordan McSweeney, the guy that killed Zara Alina. Lots of you saying it's time for a return to the death penalty for people like that. That's one of the topics. We often talk about referendums. Many people will say we should have a referendum in this country of a return to the death penalty. Would you support that? A lot of people still can't get over that £18 or thereabouts glass of wine. You are not alone. I'm still not over it either. Look, that is all we have got time for. Paul, thank you for your company. Daniel, thank you,
Michelle.
For yours too. Guys, it's the weekend. Have a good one. And I will see you on Monday. Night.
Evening, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. A mixed picture this weekend. A fine day by and large for Scotland and Northern Ireland tomorrow, but there is more wet and windy weather to come. We pretty much have said goodbye to Storm Ciarán, but here comes another area of low pressure, and that will bring more rain tonight, approaching the southwest. Ahead of it, still a few showers around, particularly this evening, if you're heading out over northwest England, parts of southern Scotland. Elsewhere, many places dry and clear, and it will actually turn quite chilly. A touch of frost possible through the northeast of Scotland. But further south, it's all about the rain coming in, turning windy once more. Not as wild as Thursday, but any more rain likely to cause problems. So we do have a Met Office yellow warning in place. A lot of spray across southern England on the roads, a lot of surface water and the potential for further flooding. The rain eases here and then it turns brighter, but with heavy blustery showers through the afternoon. The rain likely to persist in this zone across Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, Lancashire into North Wales. So quite a damp, cold day here. Brighter skies for Scotland and Northern Ireland. In the south, we could get into the teens. It'll feel cooler than that, though, with a gusty wind. Still quite breezy in eastern England on Sunday with some early rain. I'm hopeful that will clear away and we'll see some brighter skies developing. Many places seeing sunny spells, but certainly in the west, from late morning onwards, quite a few heavy showers coming in. Again, a cool feel to begin with, and temperatures by the afternoon 9 to maybe 14 in the south.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the dinosaur hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news.